So in today's video, I want to discuss a very important topic. Why does a person develop high blood pressure? The reasons behind this. This is a crucial point, but I don't just want you to hear this. I want you to truly understand it today. That's why we'll be figuring it out together, starting from the very beginning. So a person's blood pressure is determined by the fact that the cardiovascular system, as a system of tubes and vessels, is hermetically sealed and filled with blood from the inside, and the blood within the vascular system is already under a certain pressure. I'm saying filled just for convenience, of course. No one actually poured it in. It's there from the very beginning. But the vessel wall is slightly permeable, just a little permeable to plasma. Our blood consists of red blood cells, the little cells, and then about 1 in 1,000 are white blood cells plus a few platelets, but mainly it's the red blood cells, and they float in the liquid part, the blood plasma. So plasma can seep through the vessel wall, exit the vessels, and it can also return, so to speak, to the vessels, filling them up. In other words, plasma is the factor that allows the volume of blood in the vascular system to change. But pressure is determined not only by this. The thing is, our blood vessels are not just like pipes, like radiators, like solid metal tubes. They actually resemble rubber tubes more. But in the wall of our blood vessels, look, there is an inner wall, the endothelial layer, which is extremely smooth. Well, why is that? So that blood cells, erythrocytes, as they pass through the vessels, sometimes get scratched or damaged when they encounter any irregularities in the vessel wall. That's why the inner lining must be as smooth as possible. The outer layer provides nourishment to the vessel itself, feeding the vessel walls. But inside, between the inner and outer layers, there is a muscular layer. The muscular layer consists of smooth muscle fibers. And since they are muscle fibers, they can contract or, on the contrary, relax. So when certain factors affect the blood vessels, for example, the sympathetic nervous system or certain hormones, which we'll discuss in a moment, the muscular layer of the vessels can contract, the muscle fibers can contract. And when the muscle fibers of this inner muscular layer of the vessels contract, the lumen of the vessel itself, in other words, the central opening, becomes narrower. But this leads to the blood inside the vessels being compressed, and as a result, the pressure of this blood increases. And essentially, friends, look, the only reason for increased blood pressure is the spasm or contraction of the muscular wall of our blood vessels. When these muscles contract, they make the blood vessels narrower than usual, which increases the pressure inside. This tightening of the vessel walls is what leads to higher blood pressure. And so when a spasm of the vessels occurs, as you can see in the picture, the blood inside, well, the arteries, veins, and vessels gets compressed because of this. And when the blood is compressed, that is the factor that leads to increased blood pressure. Yes, you could also say that blood pressure will rise when the osmotic pressure of the blood increases. What did I just say there? Osmotic pressure is created by the salts present in the blood. Salts aren't just the table salt we use for seasoning. They include various trace elements and electrolytes found in the blood. And sometimes blood pressure can also rise when a person has more blood simply because the amount of salts in the blood has increased. Salts draw fluid from the tissues into the plasma, and the plasma in turn pulls fluid into the blood vessels. So one of the factors that can raise blood pressure is the saltiness or the clogging of the blood. But this factor comes into play when our kidneys aren't functioning properly. So the causes of high blood pressure, look, friends, if we really break it down, there are actually 3 main causes of high blood pressure. Well, sometimes blood pressure rises when a person has certain hormonal imbalances. For example, when there is an increased amount of thyroid hormone as thyrotoxicosis, these hormones can cause blood vessels to spasm, which then raises blood pressure. But these are hormonal causes, and it's quite clear what's behind them. Or, for example, an adrenal gland tumor pheochromocytoma. It produces adrenal hormones, catecholamines, adrenaline, noradrenaline, so they also constrict blood vessels, which will also cause blood pressure to rise. But these are clearly hormonal disorders. They can cause this kind of increase in blood pressure sometimes, but it's rare it accounts for less than 1% of all cases of hypertension. It doesn't happen often, and since the cause is clearly understood, treating the high blood pressure simply means eliminating the cause, correcting the hormonal imbalance. The second reason why blood pressure rises is stress. This is what people often like to tell me. It's my blood pressure. It's stress, stress, stress. When you experience some kind of stress and your nervous system reacts to some unexpected event, often an unpleasant one, although sometimes even a pleasant event can cause stress. But when this tension in the nervous system occurs, two processes take place. First, the sympathetic autonomic nervous system is activated. It already causes the blood vessels to constrict. Second, stress triggers the release of adrenal hormone adrenaline, and adrenaline itself also constricts the blood vessels. And this too leads to damage and an increase in blood pressure. Yes, stress does cause a rise in blood pressure, but only for a short time. That's a particular feature. Because when someone is under stress, it is actually recommended to engage in a bit of physical activity. And when a person does some physical activity, these stress hormones are used up as a result. And after some physical work, activity, a run or a walk, the stress subsides and the person's blood pressure decreases. But in most cases, the main cause of high blood pressure is poor functioning of our kidneys. And why is that? Why does their poor functioning cause high blood pressure? There are two factors involved. The first factor is that when the kidneys don't work well, they don't effectively cleanse the blood of salts. So let's try to return right away to the topic of how the kidneys work. Although we've already touched on this a bit in the Health Academy, the main task of our kidneys is to remove salts from the body. So look, in the process of life, our body undergoes metabolism. And because the food we eat is transformed into energetic and structural components that our cells then use, they consume and burn them, we end up with a process where, as a result of this metabolism, byproducts are formed. The byproducts of metabolism, how can I explain this? What can I compare it to? When firewood burns, what's left behind is ash. That ash is like the metabolic byproducts in our cells, in every single cell. These are salts. Well, that's just what I call them for simplicity's sake. These include urea, uric acid, creatinine, phosphates, oxalates, and other urates. In other words, all these salts are released into the bloodstream. The blood carries these salts to the kidneys. Then in the kidneys, the filtration process takes place. That is, all the salts are filtered out, and the blood leaves the kidneys clean. And all these salts dissolved in water leave the kidney and are called urine. That is, urea, uric acid, urine, these nitrogenous compounds. So the kidneys cleanse our blood of salts. But, guys, this is an important point. The kidneys wash our body with the amount of water that we drink. Do you understand what I'm saying? And for the kidneys to wash out the salts from 30 kilograms of body weight, a person needs to drink 1 liter of water for every 30 kilograms. So for 60 kilograms, that's 2 liters. Yes. For 90 kilograms, that's 3 liters. It's not about whether you want to or not. It's about what a person needs to drink so that their kidneys can properly cleanse the body of salts. And if a person doesn't drink this amount of water, well, the kidneys try to filter, but it's not done properly, and then salts accumulate in the blood. And that's when this process of increasing the actual volume of blood circulating in our vascular system occurs. Moreover, when a person's kidneys start filtering blood less effectively, when they function worse, a certain mechanism is triggered in the kidney. In our kidneys, you can see here the renal glomerulus where urine is formed. Here at the top is the afferent arteriole and the efferent arteriole, which deliver blood into the kidney glomerulus, where filtration occurs and primary urine is formed from the efferent apparatus. The efferent arteriole, this blood that comes out is already clean, without salts. And right here in our glomerulus, there is something called the juxtaglomerular apparatus. Well, you don't need to remember that word, just listen now to what it does. It checks how well or poorly our kidney is cleaning the blood. Whether it cleans well or not, whether the filtration works well or not. And this apparatus is set up in such a way that when a person has blood in the kidney well, simply put, drinks too little water, and the blood in the kidney is not being cleaned sufficiently, then this juxtaglomerular apparatus starts producing a hormone called renin. Ren is Latin for kidney. Nephros is Greek, like in nephritis, and ren is the Latin term. And this hormone from the juxtaglomerular apparatus of the kidney is called renin. Renin in the body is converted into angiotensin I, and then as a metabolite, it is further converted into angiotensin II. These are two different metabolites. And angiotensin, if we translate it into Russian, angio means vessels, tensor means constrictor, so it's a vasoconstrictor. Angiotensin as a hormone enters the bloodstream and acts on the muscular walls, causing the blood vessels to spasm. So the angiotensin that the kidney produces for its own benefit to function better actually causes an increase in blood pressure. And this angiotensin is the main factor in raising blood pressure in humans. And what I'm telling you is not some kind of secret or hidden medical knowledge. This has been researched and studied a long time ago, and your doctors know this, which is why they often focus their treatment on eliminating this angiotensin II, forgetting that the kidney itself produces it simply to function better, to do a better job of cleansing the human body. And that's why, guys, if you actually want to avoid hypertension or cure high blood pressure, you need to influence this system not by eliminating angiotensin, but by preventing the kidney from producing renin, angiotensin II, and so on. In other words, you need to give the kidney the opportunity to work better, to perform its function more effectively, and not give it a reason to activate the renin-angiotensin system. I know I'm talking about complicated things right now, but I think we'll go over this together in future videos. But for now, you should understand one thing. Your kidneys cleanse your body with the amount of water you drink. There are two important factors for the kidneys: the water we drink and warmth for our body. Kidneys do not function well in the cold, especially when your feet are cold. And that's why it happens that when our kidneys can't cleanse us with the amount of water we drink, they cause our blood pressure to rise. Stress is not always a factor, and if it is, it's usually only for a short period of time. Hormonal disorders are rare. For most people, it is the kidneys that cause hypertension. And the main reason for this is simply that a person drinks too little water. Moreover, I'll say this. When a person starts drinking plenty of water, they don't get hypertension, they don't have high blood pressure. Yes, there are cases when the kidneys aren't functioning fully, but they also need to be activated. I'll talk about this in the next video. But for now, you just need to understand that you have to drink enough water. Water is not a burden on the kidneys. Your kidneys cleanse you with water, but it's not the water itself that they remove. If you drink more water than you need, 3 liters, 4, 5, 6, you are not putting a strain on your kidneys. The kidneys won't wash out anything essential. During secondary reabsorption, in the process of forming secondary urine, beneficial substances will be reabsorbed regardless of how many liters of water you've drunk. You can never drink too much water. The problem is usually drinking too little. Keep this in mind as well, and always remember that hypertension, in most cases, about 90% of cases, not counting stress and hormonal disorders, is caused by poor kidney function. But how should hypertension be treated? How is hypertension usually treated? What is the right way and the wrong way to treat hypertension? We'll talk about that with you in the next video. That's all for today, friends. I won't overload you with information. As always, I'm your doctor, Volodymyr Maroslavovich Holod. See you in the next video. Goodbye.